next, I have the pleasure of presenting Solu Nwanze. She is a certified executive coach whose gift is to bring to life through courageous enlivenment. She works with established and emerging leaders, like some of you in the audience, and she's looking to expand, or for those that are looking to expand their impact. She will hold you with courage and love as you navigate the awareness of what you really want and take action towards who you want to become. Solu has built a career as a biz ops leader in tech. She is a director, business operations at Zendesk, and a founder and CEO of Expanded Impact. If you're interested in learning more, definitely visit www.expandedimpact.com. So let's give a warm welcome to Solu. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Solu. I love to learn. I love to learn because I love to teach. Teaching for me is this beautiful flow of learning and sharing. And when that exchange is happening, for me, that's where I find connection. Teaching is a space where I get to connect with people. I remember as a very young child, probably about 5 or 6 years old, I would come back from school, and line up all of my teddy bears and teach them everything I learned in school. My mom would cry out, "Solu, why are you soliloquizing?" And I would respond, "I'm not soliloquizing, I'm simply teaching my teddy bears," and they're responding back to me. Never mind, I was responding on their behalf. That was my expression of teaching at a very young age. And I remember going through high school and college and grad school. I continued getting myself involved in activities that allowed me to express this spark of teaching that I always had. It wasn't always very easy. For example, I remember, how many of you are international students or were international students at some point? So I was also an international student. And one of the big things you want is after school, you need that job, because that's the way I could stay in the US legally. I remember the final rounds of interviews, and the CIO rejected me from this job because he felt, I made an assumption that the reason I participated in all of these activities was just because I wanted it to look good on my resume. But that was a wrong assumption. I participated in all of those activities because that's when I felt the most alive. Now, fast forward to me working, and I remember my last job at Adobe. I, of course, continued getting involved in opportunities that would allow me to express this teaching thing where I could learn, share, and connect with people. And that's what got me to experience coaching for the very first time. It was 15 minutes of sheer magic. And of course, when I learned just a little bit of coaching, I felt I needed to share this coaching experience with other people. So I put together a speed coaching program at Adobe. And through the speed coaching program, of course, in trying to get it together, I had to connect with different people. And in that connection, I got connected with CTI, which is the Coaches Training Institute. I went through the coaching training, and the rest is history. So now I am a certified executive coach, and I still express this passion of teaching. But instead of teaching my teddy bears, what I learned in school, now I teach clients who are emerging or established leaders. And not just clients, I also teach colleagues at work and my employees how to go really deep into themselves and draw out who they are. Identify the awareness of, getting the awareness of who they are so that they can then go forward towards who they want to become. So I want to talk a little bit about this transformation and what I think exists when personal transformation is present. This is something that I discovered in myself when I went through the coaching training. Imagine 2 years, 12 different coaches working with me. You get a chance to see everything about yourself, what you want to see and what you do not want to see will get shown to you. I also observe this when I'm working with clients and employees. There are three big steps, and that's the intuitive spark, awareness, and action. So starting with the intuitive spark, this is the thing that answers the question, when are you the most alive? For me, that is teaching. What is it for you? Once you're able to identify that spark, you want to nurture it and you want to develop it. Typically, the spark may be very hazy. Of course, I didn't even have a name for teaching until a few years ago. So the spark typically will maybe very hazy, but it is that inner spark that just prods you in a particular direction. So you want to listen for that spark. The second stage of awareness is when you're beginning to develop and deepen what that spark really is to you. You can think of this as the example I gave with coaching, where I got a chance to build it out. I'm like, okay, let me try this thing out. Let me share it with others. I got a chance to learn more about it, coach other people, and actually even get educated in it. So that's what deepened my awareness of what coaching was. And those are all sort of external awareness. There's the internal awareness. That is the piece where you're now figuring out what it really means to you. What happens to you when the spark is alive, and what happens when it does not exist? That's the piece that's typically the hardest. People typically come to me for coaching because they're trying to go deeper into themselves to figure it out. And that, of course, allows you to then propel into what the external type of awareness is that you want to build up. The more you build awareness, the more you get confidence. And confidence is what propels action. Action is when you're now doing something. If you think of awareness as going deep, action is moving forward. This is where you're taking concrete steps. For example, let's imagine with coaching, I'm saying, I want to coach 5 to 8 people, so I go and seek out people. Or I may say, I want to bring in coaching into my day job, so I literally go and volunteer with my employee resource groups and coach people at work. Whatever it is, you want to take action towards continuing to define and understand what the spark is for you. Action is what leads to fulfillment. When there's fulfillment, you get a taste of what aliveness really means, and then you go through the cycle all over again. You then get pushed into the awareness, you want to know more about it, you get more confidence, you take action, you get more fulfillment, you go through the cycle all over again. I would say what is most important in this cycle, and you will notice this cycle whether it's something related to a transformation you're looking to do in your career, or whether it is something to do with how you want to transform the way relationships work for you, whether it's personal or professional, and really even in the amorphous question, I'm trying to define happiness for yourself. What's most important is being able to answer that question, when are you the most alive? I would also recommend naming it, because when you name it, you then have a lens by which you can make decisions. For me, naming it teaching allows me to make decisions on what is teaching and what is not. And I can then decide where I want to spend my time. We all know time is probably the most constrained resource we all have. Thank you.
Alrighty, it looks like we have some time for a few questions. Oops. Gotcha. Correct this slide right now. Any questions? Okay, over here.
Hi, my name is Yanni. I come from China, and I really like the circle that you're talking about. And also, I like you said about what is the most moment that you feel alive. The same, I also like teaching, but I have a question like, if you want to teach the other people, you're gonna be professional. And how can you be professional in each perspective that the other people needs? So as a coach, how do you study? How do you make yourself to be the professional in order to teach the other people? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Yes, and it really depends on what you're looking to teach. And it probably requires different levels of expertise. But I think one advice I'll give everyone is do not feel you need to have this huge depth of knowledge in something in order for you to teach it. Because through teaching, you will actually learn more. For example, when I started coaching, or started learning coaching, I also started coaching. And in fact, in the coaching training, they will tell you, you have to start coaching. If you don't practice it, you will not learn it. So for me, I'm from Nigeria originally, and I have dreams and thoughts of how I'd want to expand this coaching even in Nigeria. I know, again, going back to what Hayal mentioned about research, I know that in Nigeria, different kinds of certifications are quite important. So first, of course, I just love the idea of teaching and coaching, so I did go through a full training program. I went forward, though, to certification. I got certified by CTI, and then I did an international certification because I knew that that was what mattered for what I wanted to do with it. I have friends who stopped at the training, right? Depends on what you want to do with it. It's all up to you. But I will say, do not fail to start because you feel you need all of these degrees and all of this expertise. All of us are just learning.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, right here.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk. I had a question. So you were talking about how you knew from a very young age that you had a passion for teaching and coaching, but was there any moment that you knew you had the passion for it, but you didn't know what the end goal was, and so you didn't know how to go about that situation, or you didn't know your next step?
Great question. When I knew what I wanted to do with it was probably about 2 years ago. So I knew as a young child that I always wanted to be in the space where I was learning and sharing, but I didn't have a word for it. Now I do. It's just about knowing what that spark is and chasing it, following it. So you may not know the name for it yet, but the reason I say it's very important for you to name it, right? You have to be aware and self-aware of it so you can name it, is because you can then look at the world from that lens. And when I think of teaching, right, teaching is not only about coaching for me. I learn how to make jewelry. So I make jewelry and I teach people how to make jewelry. It's just a fun thing that I do. I learn how to make body lotions and hair creams and all of that. It's just, again, the whole learning and sharing and connecting is what really is the magic for me. So don't get discouraged if you don't have words for it or a plan yet. I was literally talking to an old colleague this morning, and she asked me, do you have a 5-year plan? I do not have a 5-year plan written down. I have something in my head, though. I have a vision in my mind. And that is what propels me to the next step. I have a 1-year plan, but not a 5-year plan yet. But I'm still moving forward because I know what the next step is for me.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Yep, one here.
Okay, there you go.
Hi, my name is Sugi. I wanted to ask a question about the confidence in the circle. Like coming from a background where you're conditioned to become this type of person in your career, and then you work towards it. But like you said, you were growing up, you knew that you were a teacher. But when you have that spark, how do you get the confidence to forget everything you were conditioned to do and then follow your dream, and then manage to conquer one of the biggest companies in San Francisco?
I love that question, and I'm going to answer it in an interesting way. Being aware of that cycle I shared actually provides me the fortitude to persevere. When I was going through my cycle for coaching specifically, I had 2 big life changes. I switched companies. It was a completely new space. I went from B2C to B2B, big, small, product, marketing. I had to learn a lot of things. And I switched again where I had a job expansion, so I had to now learn sales and customer experience. And I hadn't worked in those fields before. So there were many times when I was very close to quitting. But it is the why that matters. Why are you doing something? That is sort of what gives you the confidence to propel forward. And for me, the why was learning about coaching and sharing about coaching, connecting with people around coaching is something that made me the most alive. So the aliveness is what really triggers that whole cycle. And as you continue to move forward, you have to take that first step, like we saw earlier, then the confidence continues to build. If you look at me back in 2016 when I did my first coaching session, and look at me now, the difference is clear in terms of even my own confidence, the way I show up. And of course, the depth of coaching I know now is very different. But if I did not take that first step, I would not have been able to go through and continue building up. Thank you.